What is up, champion puppy owners? Do you want a streamlined ownership experience? Do you want a socialized dog with manners, responsiveness, and general life skills? Great, you're in the right place. This podcast is for the accountable puppy owner who wants to better know and grow their dog. Welcome to or welcome back. So this week we're talking about using the crate, not just the crate, but confinement in general. So right now we're concentrating on the crate still. Initially, we discussed why you need to confine in general, that it really is a part of your dog's development, that having your dog accept, like, listen, I can't go anywhere and I'm okay with that. Like that is a part of just, again, acceptance and staying still. And it just like for people, like being able to sit in a plane and just accept it. You're going to be on a long flight and chill the heck out, or just submitting, like understanding that you're going to sit here and be calm. So it's a lot like being able to not actively do something, which is why things like yoga can challenge a lot of people, especially like busy, fast talking, fast thinking people like myself. It really is a lot to sit there and do nothing, right? And it's an important component to humans to be able to relax the mind and thus relax the body. And it's an important thing for your puppy as well. Because if you don't, more often than not, you might have a dog who's otherwise anxious all the time, right? So it can be indicative of having a dog that can't chill the heck out. We don't want that for your dog's disposition. We don't want that for your dog's character. Remember, we're not just simply trying to do obedience training for the sake of checking obedience training off a list in a shoddy way, but we're doing development with our time together because we realize that's what really gets you the best trained dog, even if we're just talking about from an obedience standpoint. That well-dispositioned, high-drive dog that has natural impulse control. Well, which dog do you think is going to be a better dog, even if we're just shooting for good obedience, right? So we know it's a life skill, and we talked about that first podcast. Then from there, we talked about when makes the most sense to use it. So go back and listen to some of those if you haven't already. And then from there, today, what we're going to talk about is how, right? So getting to where the rubber meets the road in regards to having your puppy go from outside the crate to inside the crate, and on the flip side, from inside the crate to outside. So I like to initially just pick your puppy up and put your puppy in the crate. A lot of times people will say, well, that means like you're forcing your dog. No, but you're going to be lifting up your dog a lot to go to the bathroom and just in general at first, because your puppy's going to be sitting there kind of like a deer in the headlights, or really not wanting to be an active participant. And I'd rather do that and you do it in a nice, neutral, light way than you start pulling on the leash or sitting there like coaxing your puppy if it doesn't work. Now, I want coaxing your puppy to work. I want your voice to be something that your puppy goes to. But for a lot of you at first, that's not going to be the case when your puppy vehemently does not want to go in the crate. So it's better to be neutral than to sit there and go back and forth with your puppy, turning it into a thing. I want to knock the crate usage off a pedestal, not put it on a pedestal, right? And same goes for other things that your puppy might be fearful of or doesn't want to do. You just kind of want to go through the motions mundanely and make less of it, not more. What you can start to do once your puppy has food drive, which should be almost immediately if you stick to our food regimen, which is, I'm not going to go into detail here. I have that on other podcasts and in the courses, but our dogs eat right on time, every time, like clockwork, and they really value their dry kibble, like that regular old dog food. So what I want for you to do is just take a handful of food, maybe like 5 pieces of kibble, and just throw it in the crate and have your dog running and go and get it. And then from there, you can let your dog leave right away and then take another handful of kibble, again, about 5 pieces, 3 pieces, whatever, just throw it right in the crate. And then from there, you can start to just do that repetitiously for maybe about 4 or 5 times. And then I want for you to start to walk your dog over, right? And up until then, you've been walking your dog over, throwing the food while kind of still in motion at the tail end of your time once you get to the crate. And then from there, I want you to walk your dog over and then just have your dog go in the crate. So you can use like a pushing motion, like a herding motion with your body. And then once your dog gets in the crate, then you can offer your dog food. So for the first 4 or 5 reps, it's just a matter of coming over, throwing some food in the crate. And then your puppy runs in after the fact, after you throw the food in there. Then you do that like quickly with some momentum. You see that your puppy's just loosening up. It's just not caring as much. Then From there on the fifth or sixth rep, depending on how that's going, once you get some momentum going, you're going to have your puppy go over there. You might even like fake throw some food in there, or just if worst case scenario, throw one piece of food in there. Then from there, you're going to hook your puppy up with the rest of the food once in the crate. And so something that you can do to warm your puppy up to doing this is doing this same drill, but on a raised dog bed. That way, there's no ceiling to it, there's no walls. And for some dogs, a lot of dogs are going to be more freaked out because the dog bed is raised. And when they put their foot down on that raised dog bed, that dog cot, it kind of sinks down a little bit. So that can freak a lot of dogs out. So your puppy might have an aversion to the crate. Your puppy might have an aversion to the dog bed. Your puppy might not have either, but have its own issues, right? So they all come kind of with a mixed bag, where they do really good in some areas and struggle in others. And that's how I want you to intro the crate. Now, when would you do that? Well, you do it at meal times. You can then start to take some of the other drills that we do, like sit stay at the food bowl, and have your dog do a sit stay, then put the food bowl in the crate and have your dog wait to be released to go in and get it. And then from there, once your dog is in that actual crate, remember, backtracking this a little bit here, now your dog is wanting to go in the crate, and we're saying, no, you're not allowed until I say so. And from a reverse psychology standpoint, that's going to make your dog want the crate more. So once we do kind of like that takeaway and we say, nope, you have to earn the right to get in that crate, all of a sudden your dog's relationship becomes with it something that it wants. It's kind of like going to the gym. It's like, literally I'm going to the gym to do something that, like, I guess on paper, I don't want to do, but I want to do it. I'm paying money for my gym membership. And so it's kind of a weird thing, that I'm paying money to torture myself, going to the gym, but I want to, right? And so same is true with your puppy with like wanting to get into the crate. So we're trying to create that relationship where, what your puppy pays is a sit, stay, stare because, he doesn't have dollars. All right. So you can do this while you're doing your other drills. So that way you have some momentum, and it just allows you to mix up some of these training drills that you're doing. So you're not just sitting there doing coming when called, sit, stay, stare, food throw. Like you can do go to your crate, go to your bed. And from there, you can have your dog go to its crate, then to its bed, and kind of bounce your dog back and forth, and sometimes call your puppy to you. And if you get really good with doing this, well, then you can start to, put the food bowl on the ground and do some other things to kind of mess your puppy up as you're going through this process. So that way you can take it as far as possible inside before you go outside. Okay. So now we've trained your dog. We're starting to put the crate training just as part of like the normal drills that we do in and around meal times. But what happens when we go to use the crate like an hour from now and it just kind of all goes out the window? Well, that's why you're still going to have your dog wear a leash. You should be using a leash for a lot of this training as well, using your voice as well. So you got to go to your crate, go, boy, good, and then walking your dog over. So you're going to borrow and use the same things that you did from a drill standpoint. But if it's not there quite yet, by all means, you can lift your puppy up and just know that you're going to go back to the lab and keep kind of banging out some reps next meal. And that you should start to see to the point where your puppy gets okay with going to the crate a lot easier. The other thing I like to do very early on in the process is not just always have training being done at meal times. That sometimes I'm going to keep a little kibble set aside. And when I need my dog during like a management phase to go in its crate, use that food. So my dog knows that it's not just during training times that you should want to listen to me, that I can hook you up 24/7. What's important is that we don't overdo this, where your dog then starts to see you as like a food dispensing machine, where then it's constantly running up to you, sitting, staring at you and kind of demanding food. So it's important that we don't overdo this. I've had families do that where then all of a sudden their dog gets kind of bossy. The dog gets demand barky. And so that's a very useful thing you can do, using food strategically, not during active meal times and training sessions. But at the same time, we don't want to overdo it. You kind of got to be smooth with some of this stuff if you want it to be scalable and not develop some externalities, some like negative ramifications that end up cropping up inadvertently. Hopefully this helps you envision how to get your dog in the crate. Okay. Now that we have your puppy in the crate, we're doing this frequently during our training sessions. We're not just doing our regular coming when called, sit, stare, food throw, and a couple of the other drills that we have for you within our approach. But now we're sneaking in, go to your bed, go to your crate. And you can just jump around and kind of do a medley of these things where you're doing it kind of like freestyle. So you don't want your training sessions to sit there and be like times tables where you're just drilling the same thing over and over and over again. You want it to be more game like, a lot like Simon Says, kind of combined with that hot cold game. All right, so now your dog's in the crate and we want to get your puppy out of the crate. What we're going to do is, one, you can just tell your puppy sit. And we haven't really talked about the sit too much. For some of these more recent podcasts, I definitely have other podcasts that go over that. Sure, of course, we do that in the course. And you can have your puppy go into a sit. And once your puppy sits, whether you put it on command or you just wait for it, the second your puppy sits, I want you to start opening up the crate. Almost mime-like, where your hand's going to come down and start to open up that crate door. And if your puppy goes to stand up, you immediately close that gate, right? So that crate door, boom, you immediately shut it. So then your puppy sits back down. And then from there, the second your puppy sits back down, you start to open it up again. And then at which point, because we're only on the second rep here, the second situation, your puppy's going to stand back up again. You're going to immediately shut the gate again. And then what we want to find is that your puppy has this aha moment where it understands that it's not allowed out unless it remains seated. And then from there, as long as your puppy stays seated for like a good 2 seconds, if even, you're going to say break and let your puppy leave. And then you maybe are going to bang out a couple other drills or put your puppy right back in the crate and do it again. And so what we want to do, not just with this drill, but in general, is do little baby steps. Here at the first rep, we really just wanted a quick little baby sit, and we can start to add on to that. But I care more about you developing momentum in a training session and getting some comprehension on your puppy's end than I really do care about these long, forced sit stays. So hopefully this helps you now training in a way that you're going to get some reps in, not when you actually need it to work, like when you're just in a management phase, it's Tuesday afternoon, life's happening, but when you have some dedicated time to doing some food-based training drills, you see where you're going to incorporate the crate and food in the crate, not just with one bowl of food where it's a one-off rep, but we can do a bunch of flowing momentum-based reps. Think about this. When you're working your dog and you have food, think about what you're doing from a verbal standpoint, a body language standpoint, and how you can use the leash. Now, that's something that's above and beyond the scope of what I'm going to go over in today's podcast, but we really break that down for you in our different courses, mainly anything handling we do in our boot camp, where we break down for you how best to use these communication tools. Again, your voice, body language, and leash. So then that way you can really not just have the food doing the heavy lifting, but the food is just one component. The rewarding process is just one component of that. And so once you better understand what you're doing with what we call the 3 modalities of communication, you can then start to use more of one or two and wean off the other and just become more apparent to what you're doing throughout this actual process from a body, voice, and leash mechanics standpoint. And then you can start to scale off of that and then start to have your puppy do more and more of this. All right. So that's ultimately what you're looking for, is when you say go to your crate and you might point, you might just start like walking behind your puppy. Your puppy goes, okay, and starts finishing your sentences earlier on in the process, where you don't have to throw the food in there to get your puppy to go in there. You can pay your puppy after the fact. You are going to start to not pay your puppy every time. You might have your puppy go in there, say, cool boy, that's how we do it. And then from there, have your puppy sit, let your puppy out. And then from there, have it go in there next rep, and then you'll hook them up. Sometimes you'll give one piece of kibble. Sometimes you'll give 2 or 3. Sometimes you'll just, you do a big handful and jackpot them. All right. But that's how we're going to kind of mix it up. And a lot of these principles that I just mentioned on this podcast are true for the rewarding process for all of training, and some what I mentioned just a minute ago about the 3 modalities of communication and infusing with some and not the others, and constantly mixing it up. So it's more body language strong than it is verbal or leash, or it's more leash and verbal strong than it is body language. And you're really thinking about what you're doing in response to your puppy, and then kind of toying with it so your puppy starts to universally understand what you want from it and not just be dependent on your starting modalities of communication, but you can scale off of that, because if you're not thinking about having an exit strategy with your communication, well, you're going to be stuck giving the same gestures, and again, leash and verbal, that you start with. And it's very important that we scale off of our communication just so we can have our dog do what we want with minimal involvement from us, because then your dog starts to own this behavior, and that means you don't have to manage it, that your dog just manages itself. That said, make sure you tune in for tomorrow. What we're going to be going over is other kinds of confinement above and beyond the crate. And what that's going to do is really just give you some more options to be able to focus your dog on chewing or on sleeping. And remember, if your dog is chewing actively or sleeping in a very deep way, you're not having to manage your dog off of your kids, your significant others, yourself, chewing on things and like nipping, jumping. So now you're just starting to put your dog's good habits on a default daily regimen. And so a lot of this like behavioral modification stuff isn't going to be necessary for you because your dog's spoken for. Your kid can't be doing drugs, playing baseball at the same time. I mean, theoretically you can. I'm not going to tell you that, that necessarily can't happen, but the likelihood of happening is very, very small. So if we can get, the equivalent to like having a kid in sports versus a big empty space on its calendar, the less, bad habits are going to sneak in and start to take over your dog's daily schedule. So hopefully that analogy made sense to you. I'm looking forward to breaking down leash confinement, leash guidance, as well as some other tools like baby gates, pens, and a couple other things like that for you here tomorrow. Remember, champion puppy owner, action over anxiety, discipline equals freedom. Take the next step. Do what you know how to do. Drive the puppy training process. Truly commit yourself to this and hit it hard for a short period of time so you can stop working on your dog and simply enjoy them. I'll see you next time.